much, Miss Edna. I appreciate that. Go and take your Bibles, please, and turn over to Matthew chapter number 12. Matthew chapter number 12. And last Sunday night, we talked about something where Jesus said some things, and people kind of took what he said, and they clearly didn't understand what he was saying. Today is something similar. And so I want to do it justice, and I don't want to make it confusing, and I don't want to bore you out of your mind. So we're going to try to do all three of those. But Matthew chapter number 12. And I'm going to try and speak slow, so that way Brother Chris, can keep up with the translating. I've been trying hard, Brother Chris, all right? I want you to know that. Matthew chapter number 12. Little side note, when Easter comes, we will have these headsets. So if you have someone who speaks only Spanish, we have the means to translate for that. So thanks to Brother Chris and to other people, to Miss Nubia that helped make that a reality. Matthew chapter number 12. And if you look there at verse number 1, it says, "At that time, Jesus on the Sabbath day went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day." So the disciples are going through a cornfield. Jesus is with them. And the disciples began to pluck ears of corn, and they began to snack. And me, I'd have a problem with that. When my parents lived in Arizona, there was a neighbor. They had trees, and they were citrus fruits and different things like that, and they never plucked them. So my wife and I, we were taking a walk, a long romantic walk, and she begins to grab the fruit off the tree. I go, "What are you doing? Don't take their fruit. That's stealing." She's like, "They don't use it anyway, and it's hanging over the fence. So if it's over the fence, isn't that public domain?" No, And so for her, it was no big deal. I think at her house, they used to always do that. "Oh, the neighbor avocado tree, let's grab a couple avocados." To me, that's like, no, you're stealing. But don't forget, I'm the same guy when you go to the restaurant, you go to Jack in the Box and you ask for a water cup and you get soda with that water cup, you're a thief, all right? That's what I say, because I worked at Jack in the Box and I know how they feel about that. Anyway, so the disciples here, they're walking through the cornfield and they're snatching the corn. And the Pharisees have a problem with that. But their problem is not that the disciples are stealing. They don't have an issue with that. Maybe these are public cornfields and the corn doesn't belong to anyone anyway. The problem they have is that it is the Sabbath. And on the Sabbath, you're not supposed to do any work. In verse number 3, it says, "Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they were with him, how he entered into the house of God, did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests." So the Pharisees, they have a problem here. The disciples are stealing corn, or eating corn, I should say. I should stop using the word stealing. They're eating this corn, and they say it's the Sabbath. You're not supposed to do that. Well, where did they get that idea from? Where does it say you can't eat corn on the Sabbath? There is nowhere that says you can't eat corn on the Sabbath. That's not a problem. But there was a story in Exodus 16. We won't turn there, but you can read it on your own, where God was going to give them manna from heaven, and he told them, when it comes to the Sabbath day, the day before, collect double. That way, on the Sabbath day, you don't have to go and you don't have to collect manna. You already have it. Because on the Sabbath, you're not supposed to be doing work like that. And when the Sabbath came, of course, there were some people who didn't listen, because a lot of times when a public speaker speaks, you may miss a couple things. And so these people came out on the Sabbath day, and they went to gather manna, and there wasn't any manna. And God did one of these and said, "What did I tell you guys? I told you guys not to go on the Sabbath day. There wouldn't be any manna anyway." So these Pharisees, they are knowing that story. They know the history. So they're saying you're not supposed to do any work. If you can't collect manna, then you shouldn't be collecting corn. And Jesus tells them in verse number 7, he says, let's look at verse 6, put in context. "But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, ye would not have condemned the guiltless. For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." Verse number 5, he said, "Or have ye not read the law, how the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless?" So he makes a couple of things clear here. The first thing he tells them is it's really obvious you don't understand the Sabbath. You think you do, but you don't. You don't get it. It completely went over your head. You're taking the story from Exodus and you're applying it to today. And that was not the point. You missed the point. He gives them two examples. He says, there was a one time when David was running away from Saul, and he goes to the priest, and he asks him for help, and the priest, Abimelech, who was a good man, gives him a sword and gives him the showbread. Now, for some of you, you know what the showbread is, but for many of you, you don't know what that is. The showbread was the bread that only the priests were supposed to eat. That was the rule. And David is not a priest, and his men were not priests, but they were able to eat that bread. And the priest, Abimelech, said, just so long as your men haven't been sleeping around and their bodies are pure, they can eat this bread. And so David said, hey, we haven't slept with anybody in the past week or so. We're good right now. And so they got the bread and they ate it and they took off. And Jesus says they were okay to do that. Also, on the Sabbath day, the priest, he's working all day. That's his hardest day of work. How come he's allowed to work? But you will get in trouble if you work. He's saying you don't understand it. He also tells them that Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. Now, there's a lot of here, and this point today is not to really talk about the Sabbath, but while we're on it, let me just mention a couple of things. I've had people ask me, why do we have church on Sunday? Why do we not have it on Saturday? We were out door knocking the other day, and I was talking to a guy, Seventh-day Adventist, or he knew Seventh-day Adventist. Miss Rosemary's not here. She used to be a Seventh-day Adventist. They are very big, church on Saturday, church on Saturday, church on Saturday, okay? They're so big, there are some I've met where they think if you have church on Sunday, you're going to hell. Like, they actually are that strong about it. It's like, I'm not going to hell, what do you mean? But they felt very strongly about it. So why do we have church on Sunday? Well, the reason we have church on Sunday, again, this is not the sermon, but while we're on it, we might as well talk about it. Jesus Christ was raised on Sunday. It's the day he came back to life. And so we believe we're a part of the new covenant. We're following Christ. Here, he makes it very clear, I'm the Lord of the Sabbath. I'm bigger than the Sabbath. I am the Sabbath. I fulfill the Sabbath. Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. He was raised on Sunday. But maybe the clincher is just the fact that the apostles did it. In Acts 20, verse number 7, they met on the Lord's Day, the day that he resurrected, the first day of the week, it says. That's when they held church. Again, on 1 Corinthians 16:2, that's when they brought their tithes in, was on the first day of the week. So the apostles had service on Sunday. We're just following them. If somebody has service on Saturday, I don't think they're wrong. I don't think it's sinful. This church we rent from, the reason it's open Sunday morning is they're having church Saturday night. I don't think that they're better than we are, and I don't think we're better than they are. You want to have church on Saturday, the original Sabbath, knock yourself out. You want to have it on Sunday because it's the day that the Lord rose from the dead, and it's the day the apostles did it? That's why we do it. It's really not that complicated. It's really not that deep. Let's not get too much into that, but that's why we do that. But Jesus also wants to point out here, he says there, let's continue reading. Look at verse number 9. It says, when he departed thence, he went into their synagogue, and behold, there was a man which had his hand withered, and they asked him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days, that they might accuse him? And he said unto them, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep? And if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out? How much then is a man better than a sheep? Look at this. Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Then saith he to the man, stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it forth, and it was restored whole like the other. Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him, how they might destroy him. So this story appears a couple times, and sometimes another example where Jesus heals a leper. But the point is, a man comes to him, he has a withered hand, we don't know why. And Jesus, before he heals him, he looks around because he knows everybody's looking at him. And he says to them, is it okay to do well on the Sabbath day? And in some of the Gospels, the Pharisees don't answer him at all. They just hold their peace. But in their heads, man, they are cursing him. They are accusing him. They are saying all these things. And Jesus makes this statement here as he heals the man's hand. It's okay to do well on the Sabbath day. What is the Sabbath day? Now, again, today's sermon is actually not about the Sabbath. This is all intro here. The Sabbath is the fourth commandment. Here's what the commandment is. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. That's what the commandment is. remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Can you keep your finger here? And can we look at it actually in Exodus chapter number 20? Second book of your Bible. We are going to come back to Matthew, so don't lose your spot. But if you look over at Exodus chapter 20, let's look at what the commandment actually says. Exodus chapter number 20. And verse number 8. Here it is. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Okay, so here's the commandment. You're supposed to do work on the 6 days, but on the seventh day you don't do any work. But Jesus made it very clear to the Pharisees, you don't get it. You don't understand what the Sabbath day is. What don't they understand? Doesn't this seem pretty clear? You work 6 days, and then you don't work the seventh day. What are we missing? What's confusing? What's complicated? But Jesus said to them very clearly, you don't get it. You don't get the Sabbath day. It's gone over your head. You've missed it. And he said, it's okay to do well on the Sabbath day. Here, it says we're supposed to remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. A lot of us believe that Sabbath day is referring for us not following the law on the day you worship the Lord, because it's okay to do well on the Sabbath day. That should be the day where you and I come together to worship him, to remember him, to pray to him, to do communion, to do offerings, to do whatever it is we're going to do on the Lord's day. There is a verse in the New Testament that says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together. So for us, it's not about not working, but just like the priests did, what Jesus mentioned, on Sunday we do a lot of work, but it should be the work dedicated to the Lord. Now, there are several people here that they work on a Sunday. Hey, if you have to work on Sunday, just so long as you get a church service in, I believe you have fulfilled keeping the Lord's day holy. I don't work on Sunday, but I do work on Sunday. I don't do bus stuff, but I do work. I am driving all over the place. We're carrying that stupid red thing with the songbooks everywhere. And, I probably put more hours in on Sunday than I do any other day, to be honest. When I was in college, that was definitely true, where it was just an all-day affair. But it was the Lord's work. It wasn't physical work. Miss Brandy one time, we're talking about her, she was shocked because I always say I take Mondays off. I take Mondays off from church stuff. I still drive my little school bus on Mondays. She thought, I thought you don't do any work. No. I have it separated. I have the Lord's work and I have regular work. And on Sunday, that's the Lord's day. Now, I understand. Many of you work Sundays or you have someone that works Sundays. I'm not against that, just so long as you get your church in. I believe you're fulfilling the fourth commandment. And if you miss church, I believe that is breaking the fourth commandment because it's the Lord's day and it's supposed to be holy. There was one time when we were in the downtown building, they called me on my job and they were desperate. They said, we need somebody canceled, and can you come and can you drive up to the mountain and bring a group down? I said, well, what time? And they said, you got to be up there by 2. I said, I cannot miss church. I will be speaking at 5:30. Be really bad if I'm not there. Oh, no, you have plenty of time. So I drove up there in my suit. I had my shirt and tie on, and it was a nice day down here. When you got up the mountain, Big Bear, though, it was a blizzard up there. And I was in a suit, and I was just about to make the turn, and there's the police right there inspecting for chains. And so I had to get out, and in my suit, I had to put chains on these bus tires. Now, for my cousin Larry, chains, he can do that in his sleep. For me, I passed the chain test years ago and haven't touched them again since. So I'm in my dress clothes, I'm in my suit, trying to put the stupid chain on, trying to get the dumb bungee, and I looked up and I said, Lord, forgive me for desecrating the Sabbath. No, but I just felt like, man, God is really punishing me here. Why did I tell him yes? I try and avoid any work when it comes to that on the Lord's day because it's the Sabbath. Make sure you get a church service in. Now, again, this is not a sermon about the Sabbath. Why? Because I hate it when people go to church and the whole sermon is about, hey, make sure you're in church. We are here. Can we get something else? So basically, the whole point of today is make sure I come back next week. I need something a little bit more than that. So that's not the point of today. The point of today is not, hey, make sure you're in church. Respect the Sabbath. You guys are already doing that, right? That's not the point of today. But make sure you do that, all right? Make sure you honor the Sabbath. In Mark 2:27, can we go back to Matthew? In Mark 2:27, Jesus says something else. Same story. He heals the withered man's hand, but he says this, and this is where I really want to get to. He saith unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not the man for the Sabbath. That was the point. And that was what the Pharisees missed. They didn't get it, and they still didn't get it. Let me say it one more time, and maybe you're saying, I don't get it either. Good, we're going to explain it. But he said there in Mark 2:27, the Sabbath was made for man, and not the man for the Sabbath. And he says again, therefore, the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. In the book of Hosea 4:6, it says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And I believe that still applies to today, where people are destroyed because they do not understand. They do not understand the scriptures. They do not understand the way God works. They do not understand Christ's message. They don't get it. It has gone over their head. And they are destroyed to today. And these Pharisees, that's how they were. They were so hard-nosed. They were so by the book. They were so letter of the law and so not spirit of the law the way Jesus was that it went completely over their head. And they did not understand. Now, what was their problem? What was the big deal here? There is a story in Numbers, and I know I told you to go back to Matthew, but now I'm going to ask you to go to Numbers real quick, okay? Can we keep our finger here in Matthew? Look over at Numbers. Why were the Pharisees so big on this whole picking corn thing? I'll show you. Numbers 15. Numbers chapter number 15. There is a story in the book of Numbers that I think a lot of people maybe miss kind of the point of it. These Pharisees sure did. In Numbers 15, verse number 27, you're going to get the only time where you see somebody being punished for not following the Sabbath. And I'm sorry, don't start at 27. Look there at verse 32. It says, while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man that gathered sticks upon the Sabbath day. And they found him gathering sticks and brought him unto Moses and Aaron and unto all the congregation, and they put him inward because it was not declared what should be done to him. Verse 35, the Lord said unto Moses, the man shall be surely put to death, and all the congregation shall stone him with stones without the camp. And all the congregation brought him without the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died as the Lord commanded Moses. Why were the Pharisees so much like, don't pick the corn, sinners? Because there was a story in Numbers where the Sabbath came and a man was picking up sticks. They took that man, they imprisoned him. After some time, they took him out and they killed him. They threw rocks at him till he died. And so the Pharisees are thinking, this guy died because he picked up sticks. You're picking corn. You deserve to die. Now, we can't kill you because the Romans won't allow it. They'll think we're crazy. But what is the difference between picking up sticks and picking up corn? You guys are guilty of death. That's how they saw it. And Jesus said, you guys don't get it. Why? Well, you still open there? Maybe you're thinking, well, isn't that what happened? Yeah, sort of. Look at verse 27. It says, if any soul sin through ignorance, then he shall bring a she-goat of the first year for a sin offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for the soul that sinneth ignorantly. Everybody see that? The soul that sinneth ignorantly. When he sinneth by ignorance before the Lord to make an atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. Ye shall have one law for him that sinneth through ignorance, both for him that is born among the children of Israel, and for the stranger that sojourneth among them. But the soul that doeth aught presumptuously, whether he be born in the land or a stranger, the same reproacheth the Lord, and that soul shall be cut off from among his people, because he hath despised the word of the Lord, and hath broken his commandment, that the soul shall be utterly cut off. His iniquity shall be upon him. And then after that, you get this story of this man that picked up sticks. God comes to Moses and to the people and says, we're going to have a sacrifice here. There's two sacrifices. One is for somebody who sinned ignorantly. Yeah, they did wrong, but they didn't know what they were doing. They had no clue what they were doing. Now, why didn't they know? I don't know why they didn't know, but they didn't know. Could be they're not from this area. They could be an outsider. Could be they're just kind of dumb and they were texting on their phone instead of paying attention in class. I don't know, but they didn't know what they were doing. That person, they will offer one type of sacrifice because they sinned ignorantly. He said, but somebody who knows what they're doing, they know that it's wrong, and they purposely still sin on purpose, well, that's something else. That's something completely different. And he said that person has to bring another sacrifice. That's a different sacrifice because it's a different crime. Committing a sin and not understanding or knowing is different than purposely doing something on purpose, knowing what you're doing and just not caring. And in that verse there, he says, his iniquity shall be upon him. He doesn't say his sin shall be upon him. His iniquity shall be upon him. They're not the same thing. God gives this to Moses, and then what looks like the very next day, some guy is out there picking up sticks. Moses just has the entire congregation. He just talks to them. Make sure you follow the Lord. Make sure you're doing what you know you're supposed to do. Make sure you're following God's commandments. And the very next day, the 10 commandments are written on stone. Everybody can see them. One guy sees those and says, forget that, I'm picking up sticks today. Knowing he's not supposed to do it, and he does it anyway. The day after Moses just said, hey, make sure we're not purposely disobeying God's law, okay? Let's make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to do. The very next day, the guy's like, forget that, I'm picking up sticks. And even after he did this, they lock him up. If you look there at verse number 33, they found him gathering sticks, brought him unto Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation. Verse 34, they put him inward because it was not declared what should be done to him. Moses takes him and locks him up and says, we don't know what to do with him. There's no penalty given for breaking the Sabbath. There is no thou shalt die. There is for other things. You murder, it says you'll be killed. You have some kind of weird sexual perverse sins, you get killed for that. This is not a popular one, and I hate to say it while I'm being recorded. You disobeyed your parents, that carried a death penalty sometimes. Anyway, I'm just saying, that's just what the Bible said. Don't get any ideas, parents, but I'm just saying. That was you shouldn't be disobeying your parents. But for breaking the Sabbath, nothing was said. So they put this guy in prison, and Moses said, I don't know what to do with him. I don't know what a just penalty is. What is a just penalty? They said, let's leave it up to God. And God looked at that man and said, this man, this particular situation, this guy deserves to die. And the Pharisees saw that and said, see, the penalty for picking up corn is death. You want to pick up sticks on the Sabbath? You deserve to die. And Jesus said, no, idiots. You purposely do what you shouldn't do. The problem wasn't the guy was picking up sticks. The problem was the guy saw the law and said, I don't care about the law. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do things my way. I'll do what I want to do when I want to do it. That's the problem. And you Pharisees, all of these generations have been condemning people for picking up sticks, when what you should have been condemning is people who know what they should do and deliberately choose not to do it. And it went right over their heads. And you say, you don't get it. You don't understand the Sabbath. The Sabbath was created for man, not the man for the Sabbath. God's not trying to catch you doing something wrong. Oh, he picked up sticks, kill the guy. No. It's the opposite. It's, here's my laws. Follow my laws. I'm giving you the Sabbath so you can rest. It's for your benefit. This rule is to help you out. I'm trying to help you. And someone who sees God's law and says, I don't care what God says, I don't care what God thinks, that's the problem. He said, my disciples are guiltless. They're picking corn. There's no problem with picking corn. He says, there's people, when your sheep falls into a hole on the Sabbath, you'll pick it up. Why? Because there's nothing wrong with it. You're trying to condemn people. Everybody knows your sheep falls in a hole, you'll pick it up. And yet you want to condemn me for doing something good on the Sabbath. You guys have completely Missed it. Now, the point here is not to talk about the Sabbath. The point that I want to make here is that what this guy did, picking up the sticks, was he deliberately disregarded the commandment of God. That was the problem. These people missed that this guy willfully sinning was the problem, not him picking up sticks. Anytime God tells us something, it is for our benefit. There's a lot of rules in the Bible. There's a lot of guidelines. These rules are not meant to make us stumble. These rules are not to get you in trouble. These rules are to help you and to help me. I had someone recently, and he came to me, and he had gone to the casino, and he made some money. And he's like, oh, man, I made a bunch of money, Pastor, I'm going to tithe off it. I'm like, don't tell me where it came from. Just put it in the plate. I don't want to know. And we got to talking. He was asking, like, what's the big deal with gambling? What's the problem with gambling? I made a lot of money. I said, there's a verse in the Bible. It says, wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished. People ask, would you ever go play slot machines? Would you ever go, play cards or poker or anything like that? I would not. Is it a sin to play poker? Well, I believe the Bible teaches that's wealth gotten by vanity. You say, yeah, but I'm really good at it. I make thousands of dollars. Yeah, but the Bible teaches that if you do that, that money's going to go out the window. Yeah, you won how much at the casino? Meanwhile, you drive down the road, your engine blows up. Well, there goes all that money. Did my engine blow up because I was at the casino? I don't know, maybe. The Bible just says that wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished. So I don't look at that and say, oh man, why does God have all these rules? Now I can't even have fun. Now I can't even go to the casino. Now I can't even play cards. No. The rule is to help me. He is letting me know the best way to make money is honestly and the right way. It's for your benefit. I'm not trying to take the fun from you. I'm trying to let you know how you can keep your money better. How many people do you know that have a gambling problem? That's rhetorical. Please don't raise your hand. Me, I do. No, I'm not asking that, okay? I know a lot of people, they do it, and I know people, they get scratchers from the gas station, and religiously. How much money are they spending on that? How much are scratchers these days? How much money did they spend on that they could have taken that money and done something else with it? God's rules and laws are to help you and me. They're not to hurt us. They're to help you. So when God says to us, hey, don't look at a woman lustfully. If you're married, keep your eyes to yourself. It's not because God wants to figure out another reason to get you in trouble. He's trying to help you. He's trying to help your marriage. And if you're not married, young men, he's trying to help you find the right one. If you're looking at porn and magazines, you're never going to have a healthy relationship. You're never going to find a woman who's going to satisfy you. The women on those magazines or on the internet, they're not even real. They've been painted and filtered and all sorts of things like that. How in the world is a regular person who eats regular food supposed to look like that 24/7? You're building this false image in your head, and so God gives it to us to help us, not to take away all your fun, not to say, man, God's so boring, he can't let me have any fun. If it's fun, I guess I can't do it. No, that's not the point. The point is he's trying to help us. He's trying to help you. Anytime God gives something, it is to help us. It's also for our protection. My protection, your protection. The Bible is very clear, and I'm just picking random examples. There's a lot of examples we could do when it comes to raising children. Now, I have 4 children, and Veronica was with me this morning. I dropped her off at the park to see her kids, and she mentioned, your kids are so perfect. I go, well, take after their father. I mean, what do you expect them to? And I said, no. No kids are perfect. No kids are perfect. My kids aren't perfect either, but I appreciate the compliment. And I do think our kids are pretty good, but I've noticed something recently. They were on spring break these past 2 weeks, at home more, so I got to see them more, I got to be around them more. I'm like, oh man, you need to work on this, you need to work on that, you need to work on that. But one thing I definitely noticed, my son Foster, who they say looks the most like me, he has a really bad temper. And I didn't really notice that before. He's got a bad temper. And he goes from 0 to 100 like that. And it's like over something dumb. Like someone stepped on his foot. What is wrong with you? Like he's ready to fight the person because they stepped on his foot. Especially his little brother. He really wants a piece of him. And, it's like, oh, it's so cute. Look at how they're playing. I see that. I go, no. Because right now he's 7. When he's 17, he still has this fiery temper and he freaks out at people. Well, now we have a problem, right? At 17, what about at 27? Is he going to hit his wife? Is he going to smack his kids around? Is he going to get in a fight at work because somebody looked at him the wrong way? And so I see that. And yeah, right now he's 7. He's going to turn 8 here in a couple weeks. It's not as big a deal. But I realize if I don't raise him and get that out of his system or teach him to control that, it's going to be a problem in the future. Now, do you think I like to discipline my son? I do not. I hate it. I hate it. If they're doing something wrong, I try and leave the house. Let my wife deal with it, I don't want to be the one. I hate it. I despise it. But it has to be done. I had to get on him 2 weeks ago. I spanked him, putting myself out there on the whole world. But we believe in spanking. Why? Because the Bible talks about it. That's what we believe in. I don't take no video game away. I don't make him sit in the corner. No cartoons for the hour. No. He wishes I would do that. That's not what I do. We're old school. Bible talks about spare the rod, spoil the child. That's what I believe in. And so he did something and I couldn't excuse it and I had to do it. I hated it. I despised it. But I recognize when the Bible says, he that spareth the rod, it says it hateth his son. Hateth his son. What do you mean? By punishing him, that means you love him? Yeah, that's what the Bible teaches. Because I don't want to wake up one day and my son is locked up because he did something stupid because I didn't teach him. Now listen, parents, I understand you don't want to discipline your kids. I understand they get to a certain age and it's just easier to let things go. It's easier to look the other way. It's easier to turn a blind eye. They backtalk you and you just kind of let it go. Oh, pretend like I didn't hear that. Because if you have to deal with it, it's such a hassle to have to deal with it. It's so much easier to just pretend like it never happened. But that commandment was given to help you. It is given for your benefit. You are told to discipline and raise your children, not because God is so mean and he loves to see your children suffer and in pain, but because he knows this rule is for your protection. And someday your little 5-year-old is going to be 15 and he's going to be 25, and you're going to hate the man he is because you didn't follow the rule that God gave you. These rules are for our protection. These rules are for our blessing. It's not that God is so mad or God is so angry. They're to help us. Now, we could keep on going over different rules and different laws and different. You get the point, I think. Apply it how you need to. But any rule God gives, it is for our protection. What else? Christ, I believe, was spirit of the law and not letter of the law. Maybe you've heard that before. There's spirit of the law and there's letter of the law. You ever dealt with somebody who's letter of the law? They're not my favorite people. But I like spirit of the law people. I was driving the other day. I hate to be giving up all my sins. And I had the kids. We were going to go to the park. We're going to do some exercise. And I was in the neighborhood. We're going to the park that we're going to on Thursday. It's in a really nice neighborhood. And I know there's a stop sign there. And I came up to it. And I looked to my left. And there's a police car right there. I'm like, what's he doing here? As I rolled through the stop sign because I was looking at him. And then I noticed he's not staying there anymore. And I look, and he's right behind me. I'm like, I know what's going to happen. So we pull over, and he comes up. I got the 4 kids in there, and he comes up to the window. He goes, you know why I stopped you? I have a pretty good idea. I said, I ran the stop sign, officer. He goes, well, why did you do that? I said, officer, you're not going to believe me. I was distracted because I saw you. And he said, yeah, I do that a lot. I distract a lot of people. I'm like, oh, officer, you're so funny. What a funny guy. And he said, we've been having people speeding up here a lot. I go, I know. These people, they drive so fast up here. You got to watch out for those people, literally. And he said, yeah, we've been working on that. I go, officer, I'm really glad you're here. I'm glad you're here to stop those speeders. And he said, you know what? Here's your license. He's like, just make sure you stop at the stop sign. I go, yes, sir. Next time, you got it. Absolutely. And we drove off. Now, letter of the law would have been, I should have got a ticket. But he was a spirit of the law guy. My guy, that's what I like, right? He judged the situation, and he felt my remorse. And I say that in jest, but I do believe that the Lord was spirit of the law and not always letter of the law. Why? Letter of the law is justice, and we need justice. Spirit of the law is mercy, and sometimes we need some mercy. Now, we want mercy on us. What about you having mercy on someone else? Why not be a spirit of the law person? I know someone has done you wrong, and if you wanted to, you could throw the book at them. I know if you wanted to, you could come down hard on them. You could cut off that friendship. You could say, you're not up to my level. You could badmouth them. Why not be spirit of the law and recognize, you know what, sometimes mercy is needed. I believe that our motives and our attitudes matter. This is what Jesus was saying here with the Sabbath and the law. And in that passage we read in the law, where a sin that was done and you knew it was done was much worse than a sin done ignorantly. Why? Because your attitude and your motives matter. And if your attitude is one of such, well, I don't care if it's right or wrong. I want to do it. I'm going to do it anyway. That is far worse than someone who gets caught up in the moment, goes and makes a mistake, comes back and repents automatically. Completely different. Completely different. And God sees it that way too. He says, this person here, they feel no remorse. They don't care. They're doing what they want. He's picking up sticks. Even though Moses was talking about this yesterday, he did it anyway because he clearly doesn't care. That guy deserves the death penalty. That's what God said. This person here, though, man, you make a mistake, you slip up, you trip up, you come to the Lord. Lord, I'm so sorry. Can't believe I did that again. What is wrong with me, God? Would you please help me? That's completely different. Completely different. Attitude and motives matter. A soft heart goes a long way. Jesus told that parable of 2 sons. The father says to them, go in my field and work. The one says, I'm not going to go. I got plans today. And he leaves. And while he's at the mall, he's at the Tyler Mall doing whatever he was doing, he felt bad and goes, man, my poor dad. He's out there all by himself. He's out there working in the heat. What kind of a son am I? Gets in his car, drives back and helps his father. The second son says, yes, sir, I go. And never went. Dad, I'm right on my way. Hopped in his car and he took off. Who knows where he went? But he never went to help his dad. Jesus says the soft heart goes a long way. The attitude goes a long way. What else? Lead on softly. That's a phrase Jacob said. I believe the Lord led on softly. What does that mean? That means I want to give people an opportunity to grow. Jacob said this with the sheep. He said, you can't beat the sheep and get them, hey, go, hurry up, sheep, whacking them with the stick. He says you lead on softly. Let the sheep grow. Just as long as they're heading in the right direction, let them grow at their pace. I believe that's what needs to be done. Now, don't get me wrong. I think maybe sometimes I'm too soft or too nice or whatever. But man, people need time to grow. Change takes time. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen in 1 week. It takes time for people to grow. You realize that at our church here, and I love our church, some of you are coming 4 times a week. You come Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. That's 4 times. That's a lot. So when we have Bible study on a Tuesday and someone's not there, what's wrong with that heathen? Why weren't they here? What's wrong with them? Well, they were here on Sunday morning and Sunday night. They'll probably be here on Wednesday. You think I'm going to throw the book at them? How dare you? How dare you only come 3 times and not 4 times, heathen? No. Why would we do that? Someone comes Sunday morning and they don't come Sunday night. Oh my goodness, what's heathens? What's wrong with them? They came Sunday morning. That's what the average person is doing. I'm glad they're coming every week. Why? Because people are going to grow at their own pace. Just so long as they're growing and they're heading the right way and they're making changes in their life, man, that's what I'm excited about. I don't care if not everyone has arrived yet. We never arrive. We're always constantly working. Lead on softly. If you have a friend or a coworker or a kid who they are trying their best and they keep messing up, don't throw the book at them. Don't judge them. Why can't you be like me? Do you know how much I work? And I'm still where I'm supposed to be. Oh, shut up. Would you get over yourself? Listen, we got to lead on softly. Last one, we'll end with this. Wisdom to know each. There is a time when we should lead softly, and there's a time where we should be stern. And can I tell you, just like Moses and the people, I don't always know when the right one is. I don't always know. I look at a situation and I try and judge it the best I can. Sometimes I'm dead wrong. And sometimes you're dead wrong. Moses, they locked this guy up and said, God, you decide. You tell us what we should do. We're going to need wisdom when it comes to raising our kids. You're going to need wisdom when to know, I got to punish this. And when to say, maybe some mercy should be applied. Do you always know when to do the right thing? I know I don't always know. So we need wisdom. We need wisdom to know when we should do that. What about with dealing with your marriage, your husband and your wife? Is this a time when you freak out on him and go after him and why can't you listen? Or is this a time when maybe, some grace should be given? How about it, guys? Is this the time when you should throw a tirade because the food wasn't ready right on time? Woman, I come home same time every day. Why can't you get your act together? Or is this a time when maybe it'd be a little more prudent to, hey, let me not freak out right away. Let me figure it out. I don't always know, because when it comes to dealing with your spouse, there are certain times when something is serious and there's other times where it's not so serious. And it goes both ways. I don't have the wisdom and every right answer every time, but I know who does. Oh, I need that wisdom. I need that wisdom when it comes to dealing with my kids. And my service to the Lord. Listen, we're a very active church, though not big. I know we have a lot of things planned. I know you want to be involved. Let the Lord guide and lead when you should do more and when you should do less. You don't want to sacrifice your family. On the other hand, we can always sit back and say, well, I don't want to sacrifice my family. We'll watch some Netflix. Oh, yes, that's helping your family very much. Watching the Netflix. We need wisdom with the service of the Lord. How much to give, how much to serve. Let him guide. He knows. I believe firmly the Lord was spirit of the law and not letter of the law. Make sure that we get why things are there. They're there to help us. They're They're there to protect us. And following what the Lord says is for our benefit. Dear Lord, thank you for today. I thank you, Lord, for everyone being here this morning. I pray, God, you would just help us. I don't know if it made a lot of sense. I know it's kind of a complicated topic. I don't know that I did a great job explaining things. The Sabbath is maybe one of the more confusing things, but really the point was to follow what you say. These rules are for our benefit. The laws are for our benefit. And those that purposely disobey them, they are the ones that will really suffer. I pray, God, you'd help us to follow you willingly. And if we sin, I pray we'd run back to you. I pray, God, you give us wisdom as we're working our jobs, as we're married, as we're raising families, as we deal with our kids, as we deal with our coworkers, as we deal with our co-brothers and sisters in Christ, as we deal with the unsaved. I pray, God, you would give us wisdom. I pray we'd be asking for wisdom. It's so easy to be too hard sometimes, and it's so easy to be too soft sometimes. Neither one is good. I pray, God, you would just help us to be what we ought to be, and you would help us to do so. In your name I pray, amen.